We are going to run through the pre-tournament meeting, even though the tournament has already begun in a lot of cases. And Martin and I are going to enjoy a bouncing back and forth. Just a couple of things for what we're going to do tonight is that we're going to run through the basics. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to cover the basics, the stuff that always gets asked. So Martin's going to talk a lot about logistics and things about like kicks from the mark and so forth. And we'll actually hear a little bit from Dan and Brian and John just about division specifics for U10. Well, I'll cover U10, but they'll cover U12, 14, and 16 on up. So at the end, we'll have like a nice time for Q&A if anybody's got questions. So I think with that, we'll turn it right over to Mr. Martin.
Gotta use the mic. Okay. And I can't wave my arms like a good person of Latin heritage. Okay, so real quick, has anybody here not done tournament stuff yet? You haven't. I don't think you have. By the way, I'm Martin Bittner. What's your name? What was that? Ronan? Okay. I mean, there's most people I know, but I was like, there's a few people. This is because I live over in U8 land. That's why you never see me. So that's where I hang out. So real briefly, just going over the tournament, the way it's structured, both in U10, U12, and U14, there's pool play, which is what started last weekend in U12, U14. There will be pool play again this Saturday in U10, U12, U14. There are some U14 pool play games during the week. I don't remember if there's some this week, next week, or it's after the 3rd. Okay. So there's 2 more Saturdays basically of pool play in U10, U12, U14. At that point, what happens during pool play? Teams get points. So many points for a win, so many per goal scored, et cetera, et cetera. Cautions cost them points. There were actually already two deductions in U14 for players being cautioned, et cetera. There's stuff for substitution violation, but I'll talk about that when we go over cards. Anyway, there's points are involved. And then based on how teams do with points, that determines who gets to go on. In U10, we have quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. U12, we have semifinals, then finals. U14, in the boys' side, we have semis, then finals. The girls, there's only 3 teams. At that point, the top 2 teams play for all the marbles. So U14 girls is pretty straightforward. So that's kind of the basic format for what's going on. If you want to know any specific details, if you go to the website, the AYSO1.org, if you drill down to any of the divisions, if you go to click on U10, I think then right there's a link that says U10 tournament information. You click on that, and you can read all about it, the entire schedule, status, rules and regulation, everything. It's all spelled out. If you click on U12 or U14, you actually have to then click on schedule, and then under schedule, there's another link to tournament stuff. One of these days, should standardize that so it's the same between all 3 divisions. I know it's been that way for so many years. Why change? Yeah. So, if you want to drill down what's going on, what games are coming up, or sort of that's the Rosetta. So that's where the key information is. Everything else derives off of that. So if somebody's got another schedule, the master schedule, the true schedule, the one and only, is the one that's posted on the website. So that's the general info on what's going on for pool play and playoffs. Okay, so we'll jump ahead a little bit. During pool play, games can end in a tie. Once we hit playoffs, now there has to be a winner. So what we'll do is we'll first go to 2 7-minute overtime periods. And then if they're still tied after that, then we go to kicks from the mark. So let's just jump. We updated. Actually, there's very little updating this year, thankfully. I thought there was going to be a lot. But there's a little cheat sheet sort of on kicks from the mark, because I know that's not something we as referees do very often. It's kind of once in a blue moon, and then suddenly it kicks the mark. It's like, oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do? So a little cheat sheet here to go over what goes on. So the first thing, and we'll give the coaches a heads up, but basically only players that are on the field, if you're a sub, you don't get to participate in kicks the mark. Now, if you're off the field because you're tying your shoelaces or you're injured and you're going to come back on, you can participate. But if you're a sub, you stay on the bench. So just make sure you know who's on the bench, who's not. The coaches can come on the field, talk to their players, decide what's going to go on. But then at the end of the day, when we take the kicks, coaches need to be off the field, just the players, refs on the field. So that's number one. Grab the game ball, etc. You don't need to rush. Give them a chance to get a drink of water, kind of figure out which way is up. Next step is select a goal. Now, the new laws of the game state that it's supposed to be a coin toss. But there's a little caveat after that, that if there's other circumstances, the referees can decide. Now, in major stadiums and professional leagues and stuff, they'll do a coin toss. But if for us, we're going to invoke that special clause that says, so what we'll do is on the U10, we don't want to do penalty kicks in the mark, where a whole bunch of people can crowd around behind the goal. That's the bottom line. So in U10, we're going to pick the goals that are on the far end, near the pool. And then U12, I think we'll use the goal that's towards the baseball field. And U14, I'm thinking the goal with the armory. Oh, the old armory. I guess it's not an armory anymore. That way, that goal. I'm thinking that's the one that would make the most sense. Right. That's what I think. Well, there won't be a sun in the goalkeeper's eyes there. Maybe in U12, we'll have to see. And if that's the case, then we'll flip flop. But the bottom line is, you get to pick the goal. We're not going to do a coin toss for that. Very next thing now is we do a coin toss to determine whoever wins the coin toss gets to pick. Either they kick first or the other team kicks first. So who wins the coin toss chooses who gets to do what. Yes. I'm sure. Do you want me to repeat this in case the mic doesn't pick up? The question was, who should participate? Who should be involved in the coin toss? The captains. So sure, have the same people come back out. Does it really matter? Not really, but sure. Tell the coaches I need some captains. The order in which they take the kicks, it's up to them. They don't need to tell you. You just record. So you don't need to know ahead of time who's taking the kicks. So whoever comes out. So who's up next? And we've got a sheet of paper where you're going to be able on the backside, and we'll have extra sheets at the fields where you'll be able to, as players come out, then you can just write down, oh, who's kicking first? Oh, it's number 3 is kicking first. Fill it in. So you just log it as they come and take the kicks. You don't need to know ahead of time. So each team's going to take kicks alternating. You don't have the picture. Okay. You do? Wonderful. Where should everybody should be? So one of the ARs is going to be in the middle with all the players hanging out. The goalkeeper, obviously, there's a goalkeeper there. The opposing goalkeeper is here. So on the intersection of the 6 and the goal line. And that's where they should stand. And then they alternate. They switch back and forth. On the 18, pardon me, not the 6, yeah. Excuse me. The 18, the AR1 is going to be, or which one is going to be on the intersection of the 6 and the goal line. Yes.
Does it matter which of the ARs do the goal versus center circle?
No.
Considering how the game is progressing, it's nothing like if the AR that's there and then on that goal line, or on that side.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah, just decide when you're going to get to that point. Decide who's going to do what. Everybody should bookkeep. All 3 of you should keep track of who's scoring and what's going on. Ref, yeah, you could stand right there. They take the kick and they score or they don't score. They don't get to kick it a second time. You take the shot. Now, what does scoring mean? It can bounce off any combination of the goalkeeper, the ground, the posts, bing, 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 bing. That's still in play. When it finally stops moving or the ball's clearly come back out, then it's over. Don't blow your whistle because you don't need to. It'll be, there's some footage that you can find where shot on goal, hits the goalkeeper, shoots up, the goalkeeper's blocked and is run away, thumping his chest, and the ball's up in the air, hits the ground, has lots of spin, and slowly rolls back over the goal line. It's a valid goal. So it's over when it's over, but the ball can bounce off the goalkeeper, the goalpost. But if it hits the player taking the kick, we're done. So it ends there. So each team alternates kicks. At the end of the day, if one team scores 3 and the other team has scored none, there's no point in going on. because mathematically, the one team can't win. So it's 5 kicks total, or whoever gets mathematically eliminated. If they're both still tied at the end of 5 kicks, we had that happen several times. I think a few years ago in U10, we had to go on for an additional 3 or 4 kicks. It's ready to pull my hair out. But then you alternate. First team kicks, then the other team kicks, and it's sudden death. If one team scores and the other doesn't, then we're done. If they both miss or they both score, then we do it again. And you go through the entire roster. Everybody has to take the kick. Who's everybody's out there on the field has to take the kick, including the goalkeepers, and they can kick at any time. And once everybody's taken all the kicks, we've never gotten this far, but once everybody's taken all the kicks, then you start over again. And when you start over, order doesn't matter. It can be in any order again at this point. So everybody still has to go through it first. Yeah. So hopefully, and a second time or a third time. Yeah, but. No, you have to, right. So when you come back through the second round, you have to go through the entire roster, the entire team that's on the field before you can cycle back through again. So we've never gotten there, thankfully. We'll do our best to help out and make sure patrol behind, make sure nobody's out hanging out behind. If we see a game is going to go into this situation, when I say we, senior staff, whatever, we'll come over and help to deal with everything and make sure everything runs smoothly. Because by then, everybody's all amped up. The spectators are all amped up. So yes.
Are there rules about, I guess it's in the laws of the game, are there rules about whether the goalkeeper can change once the start?
Yes, the goalkeeper can change. You could swap. Every kick, you could put a different kid in goal. And do they need to have a goalkeeper jersey on? No. Because there's no need to identify them from anybody else. So yeah, you could have anybody, you could keep jumping around who's in goal. I've never seen that happen, but it's technically, you can do that. So that's kicks from the mark. And as I said, if we get to that, no, they should ask your permission. You should be informed. Oh, we're going to switch keepers. Okay. And you should not refuse it. Any questions about kick from the, yes. Reduce to equate, yeah. So if a team finishes the match with fewer players than the other, then the team that has more actually has to decide who's not going to participate in the kicks. So they have to have balanced numbers. And that reduce to equate used to only apply at the start of kicks from the mark. Now it applies during. So if somebody were to be sent off during kicks from the mark, then the other team has to decide another player that's not going to participate anymore. Or somebody could be injured, conceivably. Then, yeah. So reduce to equate now applies during the kicks from the mark. I didn't, yeah, I'll see if they have, well, so we do substitutions a bit differently. Yeah, so if the goalkeeper were injured, then technically the way we do our substitutions, they could sub from the bench. Right, that would not be, so if the goalkeeper were injured during taking for the kicks, they could sub. If they replace from somebody on the field, then the other team's going to reduce. But otherwise, they could sub from the bench. Okay, so again, if you find yourself in this position, you will have help. We will be there to assist you. Yes, so the first 2 weekends, this Saturday and the next Saturday, you don't have to worry about this at all. This won't be till the playoffs and that time frame. Yes, pool play you can end in a tie. Mm-hmm. Oh, more questions? Yes. So the question was, if, say, the goalkeeper gets injured and is subbed with somebody on the bench, then the goalkeeper's a substitute now. They're done. They can't participate anymore. They can. Sure. Well, the goalkeeper can kick. The goalkeeper is just like anybody. They can take the kick at any time. They can be the first person to kick or the last person to kick. It doesn't matter. do you want me to talk about signing up for games, or well, this isn't quite my department, so delegating. Yeah, it's not my department.
Man, who's got big britches here? Hey, Roy, are you still on the line? We can all hear you if you do say yes. If you're on, you might be muted. Well, just keep going. So some just general principles. I think everyone in the room knows this. Don't sign up for your own kids' game. A lot of us don't have kids in a lot of the age groups, but hang on a second. Let's just because this is our first time doing this and we're seeing if this is effective or not, we're just going to check in with Mr. Roy. You got it? How's the audio? Check 1 2 3. 1 2 3. Thanks, John.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, excellent, awesome, cool. All right. Yeah. Yes. Cool. All right. Thanks for. We want to see if we can do more meetings like this to enable people that can't make the meeting. So want to make sure that this is good. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah. So my preference is that you don't do any of the positions if it's your kids' game, and for sure we will make sure at the actual playoff time that doesn't happen. Only in like the worst case scenario. And so we've all done this before, so we all know that rule. But what we do want you to do is that when you do sign up, if you could notate what team you're affiliated with. So if you do have a kid, and it just helps us keep track of things. I'm going to talk a little bit about U10, then I'll let the other guys talk a little bit about their division. So for U10, for pool play, we're going to allow you to self-assign like you always have been doing all season. So we're not going to make that by invitation only. It's going to be wide open, just like you experience it now. So if you want to center of the game, no problem. When we hit playoffs, we will do invitation to basically the team looking for, people that maybe have done some really nice work during the season. We want to do reward-based system. And then in addition to that, for some of the more senior games, we'll have to obviously put the right people on. But I'll let the 12s, 14, 16, you guys talk about that specifically. So for U10, we do plan on sending out the schedules. They're basically being built now. Thank you for Mr. Martin, your work getting us organized for that. So appreciate that. So what I'll do is I'll give it over to Dan and Brian. I don't know who would like to go first. Just talk about your division directly. All right.
So sign up. No, that's right. Sign up doesn't change. That's fine. I just some comments about any changes from postseason compared to regular. Just one thing is with lineup cards, just fill out the stuff. The teams, the home, the colors, all that stuff on the top of the scorecard before the game starts. It's just so much cleaner if you do that. And then all you have to do is worry about marking halftime and end of game scores. And it's much cleaner, and then you're not scrambling. That one. And then the other one is just you've all been through a number of games now. Spend a little time in your pregame. If you have any G Tour experience with any of the teams, it's more aggressive postseason. Still clean, but the odds are, that if something's going to happen, it's still very, very unlikely. But something away from the ball, something like that, could occur now. So just make sure that you have conversations about how you want to handle that stuff in the pregame. And then the other one is keep an eye on your eye contact. Centers looking back at your ARs, both of them, and ARs looking back at your CRs. Do that real consistently. It's a great habit. You want to do it, but just for these games, you just want to make sure you got lots of eye contact. If anything's going on, then you're going to be more aware of a flag going up, and you can deal with it more quickly. That's really it. So we can. I mean, here. All right. Here's. You want me to do it? You want to do it? All right. So we had a situation last week. Howard was the center ref. I was AR1, and there was Mace's team. There's a player on that team that was just totally out of hand. Number 10. Yeah. And so he's, were you being assessed to or observed?
Yeah.
So you have all that, that additional tension going on. All right. And then he was doing, there's all sorts of stuff, right? But it was very clearly behavior by the player that absolutely warranted cards. So what we did in this situation, I think the rule of thumb is if we've already spotted a situation, or if a situation comes up, we want to know about it, and then we will prep the referees prior to that game to say, hey, this is a situation where, based upon the player's behavior, we think cards may be warranted to show them. We'll show them. And then what we want to, like, I have that situation with this guy. The center's already been informed of it. And then we had another situation with a coach that we want to keep an eye on. I already talked about the AR for that one. But in that situation, I also instructed the CR, inform the coaches that we will, if we see player behavior at this level that warrants a card, if we think we need to pull it, then we'll pull it. We don't want to. It's very rare. But if it really needs to happen, I think it should happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a situation where you've got a kid that's really out of control, I know we've always said, in U12, no, U14 have at it. U12, we kind of say, don't, and we don't. But once in a great while, I mean, we had a red card in U12 2-3 years ago, but the kid got scored against and he was mad and he ripped his goalie jersey off and chased the other kid trying to hit him. So, okay, I don't care that it's U12 there, then show the red card. You'd really need the card is to let everybody know what happened. I mean, because if you just sort of make a note afterwards, the coaches don't know, the players don't know, then it creates some bad blood. So that's why the cards were there that's how they originated, because there was confusion over whether somebody had been cautioned or not. Maybe don't make a big spectacle out of it. You could maybe take the player, come walk with me, and walk over to the coach and say, by the way, coach, this is what's been going on. He's cautioned. And then just take the card out just right there. Don't make a big show out of it. And that way the player knows, the coach knows, you record it without making a big spectacle out of it. It's U12. So we really want to reserve this for egregious situations, if at all possible. Other updates. Brian.
Hey, U14, I've done quite a few games. I think the boys teams, Eric's right. I think the boys teams are pretty well evenly matched. At least it seems to go that way for half, maybe 3/4 of the game. And then one team that sort of has the dominance of play will tend to sort of run away from it, but I haven't really seen any lopsided matches. I think the worst scores have been something like 4-1 or 4-2. So there haven't been any, 6-1 shutdowns. The boys do play kind of physical, and they will play more physical if you don't rein them in. So use your words, use your whistles, call fouls if you need to call fouls, talk to players individually, or say, hey, number 8, whatever. Sometimes if there's something that's kind of, excessive, but maybe not, really egregious, maybe you just want to set the tone. You give somebody a card in the first 5 minutes because they just hauled off and pushed somebody, or they got dispossessed from the ball and they, push the player in retaliation. Give them a card to try to settle things down. You don't want games to get chippy, and that's what tends to happen. Is everybody kind of gets a lot of what's the right word? Intensity, angst, testosterone, and that's fueled from the coaches on down. So the players feel it, the spectators certainly add to it, and the coaches add to it. So, do the best that you can to control the game. Again, as Dan had mentioned, good eye contact with your assistant referees. What is really, really valuable as part of your pregame as a center, go through, hey, if you're an AR, you need to get my attention. How do I want you to do that? I worked a couple of games this past Saturday somewhere else, and referees would come running on the field after me. Oh, why did you allow that goal? That was don't run on the field after me, okay? If you need to get my attention, we went over this. So, come up with whatever the right signal is or whatever the proper mechanic is that you want as a center. When your ARs need to get your attention because spectators are yelling, they're cursing, or the coaches are getting way out of hand, come up with that. I think as part of your pregame, you are certainly well within your rights to talk to coaches and to say, coaches, remember, you need to follow through on AYSO guidelines. So everything you say needs to be positive, instructional, encouraging. I need you to coach from the middle of the field. Please stay in your technical area and don't yell at your players and don't yell at my referee's ear. Okay, I get a lot of that as the AR on the sideline. You're standing there at midfield and the coaches are just screaming. So you are well within your rights as the ARs and the referee crew that is checking teams in to kind of set the guidelines with the coaches from the get-go. And that way, if they violate that, hey, coach, you went through this to check it. Remember, positive instruction, encouraging, okay? So you give them a warning and then if it, so again, just everything kind of amps up and ramps up and stuff. I haven't been around the girls' fields and the girls' games, so I don't know much. There's three teams, and I think they all seem to be fairly evenly matched from at least the scores and the feedback I've gotten. Anybody else? Evan worked a great game on Saturday. I mean, really athletic game, a very physical game, and he did a wonderful job. And I could tell the stress was there. So I mean, as a center in these U14 tournament games, I mean, you feel it. I mean, the parents are yelling, the coaches are yelling. You see how intense the players are. So everything just goes up. So you have to be ready for that and stuff. And especially the spectators like to incite and encourage stuff. So, I mean, anybody else has any feedback? Want to add to things? Silence yeah. Touche.
So maybe you could cover the PENSRA. So for refs that haven't gone on to a U16 field yet, there's an entirely different booking system for that.
Yeah, so for U16 and U19, they don't use the Google spreadsheets that we've set up. It's an area setup, mostly because it's teams playing each other within the area. So Redwood City plays San Carlos or et cetera. So it's a much different system. It's called, it's pensra.org, PENSR, if you want to write it up there. If you want to, yeah. I can see a time where you'll be signing it up for more and more games. So a lot of other clubs also use it today. So it's, yeah. If you want to ever referee outside the AYSO, et cetera, you can sign up for games there. There's a few differences this year for the tournament. Last year or the other years, we used to just have 30-minute games, but this year we're going to be playing full games. We've been assigned 4 games here. It is open assignment, so you can go online and sign up, but I get right of first refusal. And I'm not shy, so all of these games are elimination games. There's no pool play or anything, so they all must end with a winner. There is no overtime, so it goes play the game, full length, then go straight to kick from the marks. We don't have this issue. I guess a lot of games are short, but all of ours are going to be full length because of the timing. There's no games right afterwards, et cetera. And so if you have any questions or you want to know anything about, signing up and working those older kids games, give me a call, let me know.
I'll just add a little bit of color commentary. Expected weather. So we'll talk a little bit at the end. So I think that a note came out from Clayton that expect to stay close to the schedule. So if you do sign up for inside of PENSRA for a game, just stay close. I think most of you guys know that sign up for that. But there could be field closures and all that stuff. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. All right. Here you go.
And now for the most important part of the evening. lineup cards. It is critical, imperative. I don't know. I think some more adjectives here. That during tournament time, that the lineup cards be filled out correctly. I've already bounced one lineup card back from Saturday. So step one is when you get the lineup card from the coach. I need two hands now. Lineup card from the coach, it should have what's in blue should be completely filled out. The top of the card, they often don't put the opposing team, and then that creates sometimes confusion down the road. And then they need to have their entire roster on there, whether or not the players are present. I had 4 game cards from coaches that I bounced back to coaches. One, because they just had first name. If you see there's just first names, hand it back to the coach. It needs to have first and last. And also, if there's any holes, you might ask the coach, is your entire roster? Most of the teams have 12 in well, I guess it depends on the division. So just ask the coach, is your entire roster on there? Because I had several where there was a player that wasn't there, so they just didn't put him on the card. They need to put the entire roster on there. So that's step one. So make sure you get a proper card from the coach. Next thing is when you fill it out and mark things on there, it's really important that you get things correct. So when is the moment of record? You're going to fill in, say, that first column. When's the moment of record? Right? When the quarter begins. Who's sitting on the bench? If they're sitting on the bench, what do they get? An X. X means player is present, capable of playing, and sitting on the bench. If a player is absent, put an A. So we know the player is not there. Maybe say that if the player shows up late, late means after the whistle is blown, right? If they show up 10 seconds before the whistle blows, they're not late. So if you know they're late, maybe change the A to an L. So that way I know, oh yeah, the player showed up during that quarter. Now, what do you do if a player's injured during the quarter and the coach subs? Nothing. You don't write anything on the lineup card because the player of record who gets credit for sitting on the bench or playing on the field is at the start of the quarter. So somebody could start playing, 30 seconds in, they get injured, they get subbed, and they don't play the rest of that quarter. They still count as having played all that quarter, and the player that was on the bench counts as having sat on the bench the whole quarter, even though they virtually wound up playing the whole time. So the moment of record, so don't go back after the game started, there's an inch scratching stuff out and changing stuff. You shouldn't be, I see lineup cards sometimes where stuff's getting changed post facto. That shouldn't happen. Moment of record is when that quarter starts or that half starts. That's where everything is. Boom. We roll with it.
If you have any doubt or any question about being able to distinguish between the teams, get the pennies right away. So there isn't that. I watched the 2 games and then I saw after the fact and I know exactly what was happening because the uniform colors were too comparable. So,
and don't get the lineup card swapped. You're filling in the wrong subs on the wrong card. Had that happen Saturday. Thankfully, it got caught. Sue fixed it before it hit me. Otherwise, because then I start, there's substitution violations. Then I start yelling at the coach, and the coach is going, no, I didn't. Then it's he said, then it just makes a big mess to unravel. I means present, sitting on the bench and can't play because they were injured. So what would say during the first quarter, player gets whacked really hard, the coach subs the player, and then the player is injured and can't play the second quarter because of the injury. That's when you put an I. Then I know at the start of that quarter, that player was sitting on the bench, not playing because they were injured and couldn't play. So the coaches have been told in U12 and U14, and I will tell the U10s tomorrow night, this is one area where a coach might try to game the system. If you smell a rat, I want to know. Okay, because my wrath will descend. And the coaches have been told that. Do not use substitute injury subs as a way of trying to game the system. I saw it happen once. I was AR in the game. Or not, actually, I was center in the game. And the coach, there was a short little kid, overweight, huffing and puffing. And I heard the coach say, Johnny, take a knee. You know, you're tired, take a knee. Ref, injured player. So I went over and I said, doing okay? Yeah, I'm just out of wind. I said, oh, it's okay. Coach, he's fine. But that coach was trying, because he wanted to sub the kid off. He wanted to put a stronger kid on. So if you get wind of that or you suspect that, make a comment to the coach. And then don't get in a fight with the coach over it. Let me know. Because then the hammer's going to come down. So they have been warned about this. So that is the one risk of the injury sub. By the way, the coaches have an option when there's an injury, right? What's the coach's option? They can choose to play. If a player's injured and comes off, they can play short until such time as the player makes a miraculous recovery and goes back on the field. If they sub, that's it. They can't, oh, the player's better now, let's swap him back out. I've seen that happen. They can't do that. They have to wait for the next substitution opportunity, which should be a quarter or half, or another injury. So you can only sub at the substitution opportunities, not on the fly. If a player's in goal, I want a G in that column. I should see 4 Gs on every card. Had some cards last Saturday that only had 2. So, or one that had 3. That's okay. So, because there are some rules in U10 and U12 on playing time and goal, so it's important that you put the G down. Don't put a K for keeper, because a K looks like an X. So this is the nomenclature I want to see on the card. Yes?
I have a question about if it's just the same scenarios you listed. If, say, in the first half of the first half, a player is injured and a substitute, another player comes on. Then at substitution time, that player is still on the bench. So this would be the beginning of the second quarter. That player is still on the bench. We need to make a determination of whether that player is on the bench because they're injured or because
right. Correct. So you'll need to find out from the coach, is this player not playing because they're still hurt, or you're just choosing them to sit him out this quarter? And if they're truly injured, then it gets an I. If the other case, then an X. So I try to be clever and subtle if you can. And maybe before you ask the coach, you ask the player, how you feeling? Okay, so
getting the determination from the player is not a problem.
Right.
Just like on the field, when somebody would have stopped to play because of potential injury, ask the player, are you going to keep playing, or between the player and the coach? The player's involved in this.
Right. So because the players by and large will be honest, they're not thinking gaming the system. Right. So they'll just tell you what's up. And then if the coach says otherwise, you can say, coach, unless it's a head injury, and the coach will say, no, there's a head injury, I'm making a head injury call. Player's not in a situation, there might be that situation. So it's not a black and white thing. It's kind of sticky, and you're going to have to play it by ear. But if you smell a rat, I want to know. Thankfully, this will be very rare. I don't anticipate having lots of these issues, because over the years we haven't. Once in a while it's cropped up. So yeah, teams lose points if they don't do substitutions correctly. So if you happen to notice in the lineup card, can you go to the other previous card? One more. Okay, if you're looking in the lineup card and you happen to notice, whoa, this coach is going to play with this kid the whole game, and a kid's going to sit half the game, just make a comment. Say, hey, coach, you're aware of this? And if the coach blows you off, do not get in an argument with the coach. Make a note on the card that you told the coach. So the coach can't say then, gee, I didn't know. It was a mistake, honest mistake. Right, the ref told you. I don't want to. So if you think you see something out of whack, make a comment. And if they say, no, it's all fine, it's all legit, Just put a note on the back of the card and let me know, and then I'll sort it out. Yes.
Player needed to play for the purposes of satisfying the substitution requirements, but didn't want to. So one player ended up playing the whole game. That player only ended up playing 2 quarters. What should I have told the coach in this?
It's tournament time. That would be -2 points. They need to, if the player doesn't want to play, yeah, coach, figure it out, you know. Yeah, it's tournament time. I mean, if you had a situation, give a kid that's maybe autistic or a situation like that, hopefully you'd know ahead of time. At that point, involve somebody like our regional commissioner or myself or the division coordinator. Involve somebody early on if you can. You know, send somebody to go fetch one of us and let us make that determination, because we don't want you guys to get in any kind of confrontation with the coach over this. Just give them some information, and then they do what they want with it. Does that make sense? Yes, Sue? Sue wants me to recite the rule for substitution. So what is the substitution rule? Nobody sits out 2 quarters until everybody sat out 1. So I've seen this happen. This happened recently where you had, you know, X, I'll put a dash for played, sat, you know, played. We're coming up on 4th quarter. Does this meet the rule? This player sat out 2 before this player sat out 1. They should have done this. So, and the reason we have that in place, because it works for any roster size, it works for any, you know, and it also works, it prevents coaches from finding themselves in a situation where 4th quarter rolls around and mathematically it's not possible for them to meet the sub rules. So that's why it's a nice all-purpose rule that catches everything nicely. So there are rules there. Yeah, if they miss the 1st quarter, they're only required to play half. If they arrive during the 2nd or 3rd quarter, they have to only play 1. Okay. So you don't need to worry about those kinds of situations. Just if you've got that weird situation like that, somebody's been absent, then I'll sort it out. You don't need to sort that out. I'll sort out what to do in those oddball situations. U10, we've got this long, complicated thing. No. So they will have sat out. So you're saying a player, we have this situation, right? Absent. So does this. Right? And then somebody else, okay, and then somebody else does this, or somebody else does, those are all okay.
But if he's listed as an A, he can't go in that first quarter.
Correct.
Right? He can't go in that.
Correct. He's absent.
Shows up 3 minutes into the game and then goes in.
I guess only for an injury sub, he could. It becomes kind of weird with players because, you know, it's not like they were sitting on the bench. So that's why I said these kinds of situations, we'll resolve it so you guys don't have to. Well, no, if you come in the rule, if they're showing the 3rd quarter, they have to play the 4th. It kind of sucks for the coach because they may have a plan. You know, but that's the by the way, that's the AYSO national rules. Somebody arrives during the 2nd or 3rd quarter has to play 1 quarter. So let's see, anything else? Oh, one last thing on game cards in U10. So let me step back. U10 pool play is different. Everything else we're playing full length games and it looks like a regular game, just that it matters. U10 pool play, they are short games. They are 30-minute games. We do not have quarters in pool play in U10. 2 15-minute halves. So they'll play the first half or they'll play the second half. So when you fill out those lineup cards, just use the first column and the third column. Don't bother with the second or the fourth. So just use, mark status the first one, because you don't need to put double X's because then it just confuses things. So just fill out the first column and the third column. That's all we need. And don't worry about substitution rules and anything else there. We go over that in spades with the coach. I've got this whole binder. We track stuff. We talk to the coaches. So, except for if somebody were sitting on the bench for both the whole game, you might want to make a note, hey, coach, or some kid's going to be in goal the whole game. We've told the coaches that they have the right to come and check the lineup cards. Do turn them into us, and then they can come and check them with us. So, if they're trying to grab the lineup card from you because they want to check it right there, say, Coach, hey, we need to get off the field. I'm going to go turn it in. You're welcome to go over to the table and check it there. That's it for lineup cards. Oh, and as Dan said, the top part, if you can, fill it out, on the backside, fill it out prior to the start of the match as much as possible. Certainly, the time is of importance, the date and the time, because I wind up at the end of the day with a stack of lineup cards from multiple weeks, and sometimes things get mixed up, and the date and the time and the age division, U12, U4, that's how I sort things out. So when I get cards, there's no time on it, and then just becomes a headache trying to figure out where that card belongs. So please, 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 please fill them out properly. If you don't, what's going to happen? They're going to get scanned, and then they will be emailed to you, and I will ask, hey, what's going on? Oh, and so to help make that happen, please print your name on the back. Now, I shouldn't just have one name. There's a ref and 2 ARs. There should be 3 names on there. So I don't have to hunt down and find out who was at that game, who was ref in that game. So all 3 names should be on there. That's something you can do before the start of the match. So please print, don't sign, so I can figure it out. Questions about lineup cards? So we can move on. Click onto the... Oh, there's my thing. Yeah, there's a bin, the usual bin, just come and put your... Oh, okay, so game schedule. Let me talk about that. So it's critically important that we start the games on time. Not so much in U14 and U12. We got a little bit of leeway. U10 is actually this year, guess what? Instead of 5 minutes between games, we have 10. Life is a... Why did you tell anybody? I shouldn't have. So, because the lights on McGarvey is what allowed, not McGarvey, the lights on 49 are what have allowed us to spread things out. So it makes for a bit longer day, but not quite so stressful, getting people off and on and the next game starts. So we have a little bit of breathing room. In U10, we're going to do our best to actually check in all the players, do the coin toss and everything prior to the game. So if you're reffing that game, I can turn to you and say, Evan, here are the cards. This player hasn't shown up yet. Blue is kicking off, and they're going to be on the, the north side of the field. Or, here's the game ball. Or will we have game balls? Okay, so you don't need to collect it. So we'll have everything done, hopefully, and we can just hand it to whoever's reffing that game in U10. U12, U14, yeah, you got to do all your stuff ahead of time. But do start the games on U10. We're going to tell the coaches they can't go out and run around and warm up. They go to the technical area, get their stuff together, get the lineup, take the field, ready to play. And if you can start a little bit early, start early. Because we have games, we start at 8 a.m. and we go ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk all day long until too late. It's just going to be a very long day for those of us who will be on the field all day. Right, Sue? Right, Mark? So, and then, yeah, keep the halftime at 5 minutes, and then end the game on time. So, question? Or are you just stretching there? Okay. Mark, Well, pen and paper. He'll jump in. Thank you. We appreciate that. So key thing, U10 playoff. I mean, U10 pool play. Subs are only at the half. When we go to playoffs, and it's back, looks and quacks like a normal game. Last thing on substitutions. If we go to overtime, then at that point, there's no playing time requirement. The coach can leave the same set of players on the field for the entire 2 overtime periods. So we'll do a coin toss, same thing. It looks like a mini game. The 2 7-minute overtime periods, coin toss, pick sides, who's going to kick off, start the match, run 7 minutes, stop, brief halftime, let them get some water, get a drink, back on the field, play the other 7 minutes. So it looks just like a mini game, except the coach does not have to sub anybody. They can sub on their throw-in. So if it's my throw-in, I can sub. I can sub on my goal kick. Either team can sub on a kickoff. I may be messing something up. It's in the rules. Well, on your goal kick, I think, well, you know what? I can look it up. But I'll look it up. I'll keep going on. I'll look it up while somebody else is talking later on, and I'll clarify it. But if we get to that point, we'll refresh you on what the substitution rules are for overtime. And that applies to U10, U12, and U14. So you don't have to worry about filling up a lineup card or who's playing, not playing during the overtime period. I think that's it. But bottom line is you will have help. We will be around. So if there's any questions or issues, spectators, coaches, players, law questions, come and ask for help. We'll be around. I will not be at the U8 games. I now pivot over off of U8 field, and I will be mostly on the U10 fields because that's the really tough one. Yes, Michael. Yeah, that's in playoffs. So this is the last weekend. So they were talking at U16, U19. Yeah. So, okay. So U10 pool play, U12, U14. So the next 2 Saturdays can end in a tie. The last Saturdays when now it's for all the marbles. And at that point, we have to have a winner. The consolation match in U14 boys and U12, we're not going to have overtime. If it ends in a tie, we're just going to stop. We decided that's just kind of silly to push the envelope on the consolation game. So that's.
I found it useful because the playoffs will be a couple weeks from now. Something I forget. It's really worthwhile to review the tournament page on the website. Much closer to the time. What he's saying, they all spelled out there.
Yes, it is all on. Yeah, so yeah. See, on your possession on a throw-in, both teams on a goal kick, both teams on either team on a kickoff. Injury, only the injured player. There we go. That's only during overtime, right? But again, like I said, when we get to that point, there are many fewer games when we finally get to the sudden death. So at that point, there'll be more help there present and involved. And we're also going to try to make an effort to have 4th officials. When we get playoffs, there'll be a 4th official there to take care of the lineup cards. So the ARs and the referee will not need to be bothering with the lineup cards. So there will be a 4th official there taking care of the paperwork. The reason is we want to make sure there aren't any substitution problems, because if there are and the game's over, we've had the team that loses go, so what's the consequence? We lost because of their illegal sub. Not. But what do I say as a tournament director? What do I say to that team? What's the consequence? What's the punishment? So we want to make sure the last couple of years we've nailed it. We've gotten it. We've had a 4th official, and we haven't had any issues with that. So bottom line, on time, fill out the lineup cards correctly. Please fill out the lineup cards correctly. It makes for much less work for me because it's just trying to sort out when there's something wrong. It takes a lot of time, and not just my time, but other people's time is emailing back and forth and et cetera.
All right. Thanks for sticking with us. It's 8:30 on the dot. With that, we're going to post this online. All right. I think that's it. All right. Thank you. Thank you.